Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have rain warnings issued in places as we're going to see more heavy batches of frontal rainfall over the course of the next few days. We'll look at the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature as it's remaining fairly unsettled over the next 5 days, and those temperatures will be very much up and down, of course mildest in the south, coldest in the north. We'll then have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles as the outlook as we head into the first half of January is generally unsettled, and those temperatures are looking likely to fall more towards average or below average over the course of the next week or two. But again, that's from polar maritime air masses coming in from the northwest, so nothing bitterly cold, but making it feel colder at the surface, and perhaps a bit more winteriness in the north. We are seeing signs from the GFS today specifically that there could be blocking appearing to our north. That is something that we have alluded to over the last week or so. As we head towards the middle of the month, a lot of long-term climate drivers are going on that sort of trend towards the middle of the month, but it is sort of longer range stuff, so there's always a lot of uncertainty with it. But there is a proper Scandinavian high on the latest GFS run today, which would try to push in properly cold air as we head through into the middle and second half of January. So we'll have a look at that, but I must stress that it is only one run, and again we'll have to keep an eye on it, see if we see any consistency from other models over the next few days, whether more than just a few ensemble members do get on board. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see it's actually a pretty dry day today. The first Monday in January is pretty decent. We're under a brief ridge of high pressure. Just shows you what a little ridge of high pressure can do when we are in winter, especially we've got huge weather systems around. Again, so it's just a brief window of dry, sunny weather. But it is, really quite nice. You can see the weather system that moved through yesterday gave heavy rain in the afternoon and evening across many central and eastern areas, and that's now moving out into Scandinavia and some remnants across northwestern Europe. But for most of the UK, it's pretty much bone dry and sunny out there. A few showers in the far northwest, again isolated though, and then a few across Scotland coming in on westerly wind, mostly rain but falling as snow over the higher ground. Again, not too unusual for this time of year, but there is a big weather system just off the coast of Ireland now, and that will be pushing in over the course of the next 12 hours or so. So yeah, a brief window of drier, settled weather. I have alluded to this a few days ago, saying Monday is probably going to be one of the best days coming up. So I hope everyone out there is enjoying it, enjoying a bit of sunshine out there, getting a bit of vitamin D. It does look likely to continue to be generally gloomy and rainy over the coming days, unfortunately. Now, if you put on the temperatures, under a brief ridge of high pressure and cooler, drier air mass, it is a colder day today. Again, not bitterly cold, but generally average for most, maybe below average in the north. You can see we have got still hints of yellows, but none of these thicker yellows that we're seeing still across parts of Europe. So temperatures around that sort of 7 to 9 degree mark, so maybe average, slightly above, slightly below, widely across England, Wales and the Republic of Ireland, Northern England and Scotland. A lot more of these lighter blues indicating temperatures towards the mid to low single digits, probably below average for quite a few areas. So quite a cold day, but again I think the sun and dry conditions are definitely making it feel worthwhile. If you do go to the weather warnings though, you can see rain warnings are issued for tomorrow, so heavy rain is going to be moving back in. Again, it's across the areas of southern Scotland and the central areas of the Highlands as well. Again, areas that are prone to heavy rainfall because of the orographics, because we've got higher ground there, any moisture going up against it, we get a lot of relief rainfall, so increased rainfall rates. But elsewhere there could still be a lot of heavy rain, and again we have seen some flooding issues in these areas, so again could be some problems. Of course, in this yellow warning zone across southern Scotland, we did see an amber warning issued there last week for rain, so hopefully we don't see too many issues again with this. It's from 2 p.m. tomorrow until 6 a.m. on Wednesday. Occasionally heavy rain and a thaw of lying hill snow is expected to lead to localised flooding and travel disruption. Accumulations widely of 15 to 25 millimetres are likely within a few locations, mainly Western Hills, seeing as much as 50 millimetres. where the rainfall gives rising temperatures, because of course it's associated with a warmer sector, will lead to thaw of lying snow, which we have seen quite a lot of over the course of the last few days. Many areas across Scotland actually, especially elevated areas, woke up to snow on New Year's Day. So that could, a lot of that could melt and could cause some more issues. So high likelihood here at lower end of the impact matrix. And again, another warning across northern Scotland, again, for the same time frame, same warning areas, and again, impacting the central area of Scotland. Again, this warning goes into Wednesday as well. Elsewhere, though, there will still be heavy rain around, still could be some disruption, but not yellow warning worthy. Now, if you have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, you can see how this afternoon it's really quite pleasant, pretty much bone dry, and very sunny as well. Cloud does increase over the course of this evening in the far west across the Republic of Ireland, and rain arrives around 7-8 p.m. The next weather system pushing in. So yes, a brief spell of drier weather. And across the north and the east tonight, around midnight, we could still see very cold conditions, perhaps a frost appearing in many areas, even into East Anglia, where it's generally been mild, simply because colder air mass, clear skies, middle of winter, we're always going to see cold conditions prevail. The weather fronts do arrive, though, for many around sort of the early hours of the morning, and we do see that rain eventually pushing in. Could be snow initially on its leading northeast edge, but mostly rain. And again, you can see heavier rain across central Scotland and southern Scotland, and again, another batch of heavy precipitation through tomorrow afternoon. So this rain moving through tomorrow early morning into sort of mid-morning, further eastern areas, but again, that's not causing the rainfall warning. It's this second batch of precipitation that arrives by the afternoon. Could be very heavy rain quite widely in the west through Tuesday afternoon. So yeah, it could be a brief lull through late morning before the next batch of heavy rain pushes in for all areas. Tuesday afternoon into the evening will be pretty miserable. Pretty much widespread precipitation all the way from the far southwest all the way to the far north, seeing thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain. As we head through Tuesday evening overnight, more heavy showers in the south. You can see there's some quite light, bright colours there, again indicating quite torrential precipitation in places. Again, luckily falling overnight, but it could mean there could be some standing water come Wednesday morning. As we head through Wednesday morning, things do clear and it's generally drier for many for sunrise. And as we head into the afternoon again, a reasonably dry day, but still cloud around and still some heavier showers in the north and west especially. As we head through Wednesday evening, what a surprise, another batch of precipitation arrives from the west, giving more heavier rain, especially in the north. Again, quite a big milder sector associated with this, so not a lot of snow at all over Scotland. And again, that rainfall mainly affecting northern areas, but a bit of a colder front sinking in the south as well could give some precipitation through Friday. And into Friday afternoon, actually quite dry conditions, but again, a brief spell of dry weather before another weather front arrives. And it's this general barrage of low pressure in from the west, weather fronts pushing in, is going to just keep us very unsettled for the next 5 days plus. Now, there are signs, as I said, for the jet stream to potentially push further southwards. This could push more of the wind and rain for the south, allow the north to be slightly colder, and maybe bring the risk of more snow. But we're not seeing that in the shorter range. That's something to come perhaps next week, as we'll see on the longer range in a minute. Now, to put on the max temperatures, you'll be able to see this afternoon, it's generally a cooler day. Those temperatures around that widespread sort of 5 to 7 degree mark. Isolated areas could be 8 or 9, but generally average for most or slightly below average as you head northwards, and quite cold across Scotland, northern England and northern Ireland, with temperatures struggling into the low single digits. As we head through Monday evening, a widespread frost in northern and eastern areas especially, but a lot of that frost disappearing by sort of sunrise as thick cloud and rain pushes in tomorrow. You can see by tomorrow afternoon, still cold across some parts of Scotland. Those temperatures are rising. We still hold on to those low single digits, if not freezing temperatures. There will be snow, but widely it's sort of 7 to 9 degrees, 10 to 11 further southwards. Through Tuesday evening, all areas are going to be in milder air. You can see even the Highlands of Scotland are going to get a few degrees above freezing, and many areas overnight are going to be 10 to 12 degrees, incredibly mild night. And by Wednesday afternoon, we stay around 10 to 12 degrees. So very little diurnal range there at all. The temperatures staying pretty much consistent through Tuesday night into early hours of Wednesday, all the way to Wednesday afternoon. Through Wednesday night, the temperatures do start to fall, slightly cooler air, but only down to sort of 5 to 7 degrees widely. By Thursday afternoon, temperatures rise once again, 10 to 12, but colder in the north, with a bit of a north-south split. Through Thursday night, eventually cooler air does arrive for Friday, and widely for Friday, temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees in the south, cooler further northwards, and again we stay generally cool into Saturday in the north, but still milder air pushing up from the south. So you can see why there's a lot of oscillating temperatures here. Some days it's going to be well and above average, 10 to 12 degrees, other days more around average, sort of 7 or 8, and that's why we're sort of very much up and down temperatures, and of course the north is more likely to be on those colder end, the south more on the milder end. Now if we do have a look at the longer range going on to the GFS and see what's happening over the course of the next few weeks. Again, a westerly flow coming in at the moment, all those purples towards Greenland, the Azores high, creating a very strong westerly wind and strong jet stream. You can see again a lot of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, and the flow is generally from a west to southwest, and that's why there's a lot of milder sectors this working week. However, we see a big low pressure system come out of Greenland and northeast Canada by Thursday, Friday time, and this is when those polar maritime air masses start to push in. And you can see a lot of cool air will be associated with this coming in, and you can see the flow is now generally from a northwesterly wind, so it is cooler conditions. You look at the upper air temperatures, widely below freezing at 850 HPA, so average to more below average, and this sort of pattern does continue. Again, milder sectors do push in for a time, but we generally say more on the northern edge of the jet stream. Now this happens all the way to day 10, sort of more reliable time frame. The majority of models get to this stage where we've got cooler northwesterly winds starting to push in, average to below average temperatures widely, and perhaps even quite cold in the north, and maybe some winteriness. But what the GFS does here is it amplifies this little bit of higher pressure we do have building towards Greenland and Scandinavia. Now we are seeing it from some ensemble members, but not a lot from other models, and again it is something that longer range things have been suggesting, but we haven't really seen it come to fruition, but we are now starting to see it come on the GFS. I did say a few days ago I'm expecting to see cold charts starting to appear, just simply because of the climate drivers and things that are at play, but again we'll have to wait for consistency before we can say anything will happen. But the GFS today does build that high pressure up towards Scandinavia, a proper high pressure system, and right towards the end of this run, towards the middle of the month, we do start to pull in easterly winds. Now the low pressure towards Iceland and Greenland is incredibly strong, and that's trying to break away the higher pressure, but we do get easterly winds in for a time. For the end of the run, eventually the easterlies do fail. But it is all because that very strong low pressure. That low pressure is slightly weaker, we'd maintain those easterlies. But it does go cold for a time. You put back the upper air temperatures, and you can see -5 isotherm trying to push in, and cold air trying to get wrapped around, but not fully coming in. Again, you change its orientation slightly, it would produce much colder weather. So again, nothing bitterly cold from the GFS, but a synoptic pattern that would turn us a lot colder and drier as well. Again, we'll have to see what happens. This is a big contrast to what we're seeing up until day 10, so it is quite a stretch, but there is the potential there. The midnight run also went for a similar pattern, and a few ensemble members are going for it, and of course the long-term drivers, the AO going negative, the NAO likely to be trending more neutral, maybe negative towards mid-month, and the MJO into phases 7 and 8, again encouraging Atlantic ridging and higher pressure towards the North Atlantic, Iceland, Greenland, Scandinavia sort of area. So all of those sort of oscillations and drivers are hinting at more amplification and the potential for blocking, and we're just starting to see some of that output now on the GFS. But once again, I must reiterate, we have to wait a number of days until this gets into the 10-day time frame and see what the GM, the ECMWF have to say for it, and what the other ensemble members do as well. Now, if you go to the GEM, see how that does compare up until day 10. Again, that doesn't really get into the time frame of when the GFS builds that Scandinavian high, but do we see any hints of anything like that? If you run through, you can see a general westerly flow, generally southwesterly this week. Next week, more of a northwesterly flow, or more flat westerly. You can see right towards day 10, we actually see it turn a little bit milder there. Yes, a little bit more amplification in jet stream because we see this low diving a bit further southwards, a bit of a southwesterly here, but we're generally on the milder end of this, and you can see it actually really quite mild towards the end here. No sign of any high pressure up towards that sort of Greenland to Scandinavia point. So complete contrast to what the GFS was showing again. Just highlighting the uncertainty. This would go very mild here towards the middle of the month. Again, we could still see high pressure building very quickly, but you look towards the northern hemisphere, there's not a lot of blocking at all. So GM definitely not thinking that we're going back towards a negative AO or negative NAO, even though the majority do. So perhaps this GM run is a little bit anomalous in the general overall sort of pattern, as the AO is definitely, from majority of ensemble members, trending negative, which would suggest there would be blocking within this big blue area where there's big low pressure forecasted here. So we'll have to see what happens, but GM definitely on the other end of the spectrum to what the GFS was today. If you look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, trending more northwesterly next week with a big low moving in and generally cooler conditions coming. You see the black line of where the jet stream is now through central or southern France, and you can see generally we are in average to below average air masses, and right towards day 10 you can see a bit of Atlantic ridging there. You can see the jet stream rising slightly and dipping a little bit, but again nothing crazy. If you follow the isobars, the air is coming from sort of Iceland, Greenland and the North Pole, but along quite a long sea track, so it is cold or cooler than average, but nothing bitterly cold here. Again, could shift cold here, but probably nothing sustained, probably just sustained below average conditions. Again, you look at the temperature deviation, nothing ridiculously cold, but generally blues flooding in from the northwest. So average to below average conditions likely from the ECMWF here, but no sustained cold weather. So sort of in between the GM and the GFS, definitely suggesting perhaps some more Atlantic ridging. And if we look at the northern hemisphere view, a little bit more blocking, trying to infiltrate in, but again, nothing too substantial. So we'll have to see what happens in the longer term, of course. If you look at the ensemble members, just from the London perspective, from the 6 a.m. run, you can see generally above average over the next sort of 5 or so days in the south, but of course cooler in the north, and generally the country is probably going to be around average. Trending cooler towards the next weekend and staying around average or maybe slightly below average, and at times could be slightly milder. Again, I suggest this little rise here is associated with a warm sector within one of the low pressure systems again, but will depend on exactly how that low does develop, and at sort of the 10-day time frame we can't say for too much certainty. So it could be some briefer milder sectors, but most of the time this white line is average to maybe slightly below average from around the 10th of January to the 18th. So again, suggesting cooler or sort of average conditions. We are seeing quite a few colder runs here. The GFS operational run going cool here. Again, these runs are suggesting northerly or easterly winds, that blocking probably getting going and pulling in very cold air. So there is a few runs going along with this, but nothing too substantial at this stage. Generally higher precipitation, well again, encouraging that unsettled theme. Look at the dew points again, cooling down towards around the 8th to 10th of Jan, again indicating cooler air masses pushing in. But of course, if we want to see anything snowy or anything really cold, you need to see these dew points below freezing. And again, it does increase in frequency in the longer term, but we're seeing nothing too substantial at this stage. And if we look at the ECMWF ensemble members to compare, again, very similar, above average over the course of the next 5 days, trending more towards average next weekend, and then staying average to maybe below average from around the 12th of January onwards. And again, there are some very cold runs appearing, but again, nothing too substantial. Again, those are the few runs that are properly building in that Scandinavian high, or sort of high towards Iceland, and pulling in a properly cold easterly or northerly wind. Again, there is the chance of that, but nothing too concrete at this stage. And again, I don't think we'll be able to decipher that for a number of days. Just hints at this stage. So if you're looking towards colder weather, there is the chance towards the middle of the month. Definitely some things going favouring for it, but still got quite a strong westerly flow out there, a lot of westerly momentum. It could topple it, and I guess I do think definitely we'll be in for a lot of model watching over the course of the next week or so to see what's happening. And of course, we've got the warming going on in the stratosphere again. Did another YouTube short yesterday, so do check that out. Well, we had a look at the latest stratospheric or latest run on the stratospheric warming, and we're potentially starting to see a split appearing in the polar vortex right at the end of the run. So unreliable in the exact pattern, but pretty much Now, 3, 4, 5 days of consistent major warming in the stratosphere, whether it will result in a sudden stratospheric warming or just a displacement of the vortex or just a general warming and a weakening of the polar vortex, we will have to see, but there definitely is a warming going to be taking place, and again, we'll have to see how that does evolve. We'll probably do a dedicated video on that in the next few days when we have some of the ECMWF data that does come in through today. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.